Okay, welcome back to the latest United podcast, the podcast of the official supporters club here in New South Wales, Australia. Hopefully everyone is having a good evening. We just thought we'd just pop on for, 15, 20 minutes and have a quick chat about thankfully nothing to do with Ronaldo, maybe another player. We do have other players in the squad, so we'll have a chat about someone other than the Portuguese, but someone who does create a little bit of discussion in Donny van Beek. Obviously had his interview yesterday with Rio Ferdinand and Stephen House, and it was a good interview. I'm sure a lot of people have watched it. So if you haven't, I urge everyone to go and just type in Donny van Beek 5, Rio Ferdinand, etc. into YouTube, and you'll find it's a good sort of half-hour discussion, and he's very honest off the back of it. So before we get into that, Larry, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Nice to see you again, and really positive feedback from the chat with Webby. It was a pleasure to have Darren on. But yeah, this Donny news, really refreshing. I gotta say. Well, obviously we will get into it, and welcome to everyone who is here watching us. And if you like Donny's comments, like the video, because if you don't like his comments, then football's not for you. This was such a refreshing interview, Tom, because you will very rarely, particularly now in modern football, these players are overcoached, over media trained. They're told to be cautious. They're told to be robotic at times. This was so refreshing. A player coming out, backing his ability, but while doing that, remaining respectful of the manager's decision. I loved this interview by Donny van Beek. Absolutely loved it.
Look, I agree, but just on that point, keep that fresh in mind in terms of that respectful nature of the interview, which I do want to touch on, which I agree, but I'm an interesting sort of angle to look at it. But just a few comments here. Josh, evening, guys. Really good interview with Donny and Rio, which was refreshingly honest, even with all the agent questions as well. Worth a listen for anyone who hasn't watched. And Ryan agrees. The UK paper's already trying to misquote him already and blow the interview out of proportion. Yeah, there was nothing really groundbreaking on the interview. It was, just as both guys say, it was a very honest chat type thing. But Larry, you mentioned in regards to it was a respectful nature behind the sort of the tone of the interview from both Rio Ferdinand and Donny van Beek, no doubt. However, he has gone about it the right way. However, put yourself in Solskjaer's shoes. Now, is he undermining the manager a little bit, like coming out and he's almost putting a public pressure on the manager? And we sit here and we agree with Donny van Beek. We agree with everything he's saying. But I have to think, and I like what he's done. I like how he has gone about it, but there are two sides to the coin. I'm just thinking, has he maybe not gone behind the back of Solskjaer, but if he isn't in Solskjaer's good books already, I don't think this is really going to help him as much as I do like it.
No, I love it. I love it. Look, from Ollie's perspective, yes, there is an argument to say, is this a little bit risky by Donny? And there is a little bit of risk on it. But you know what? Let's look at it from the other side. He's already not playing, Tom. So what did he really have to lose here? Yeah. If he's been promised something, and not just that, I think for the fans, we were starting to see a lot of disgruntlement among the fan base that was saying, why is his agent coming out? Why doesn't Donny come out and speak? We always say it about Paul Pogba and Mino Raiola, don't we? Why doesn't Paul come out and speak? How refreshing was this? We heard it straight from the player's mouth. We now know what Donny wants. Donny wants to play. Donny wants to stay. Donny wants to prove himself. I love this, mate. I thought it was so good. And if Ollie sees this negatively, then that's on Ollie for me. He didn't say anything disrespectful. He said, I'm going to train hard. I'm going to work hard. But he said facts. He mentioned here, I want to play. I can train as much as I want to, but I can only show what I can do by playing games. Spot on. What's inaccurate about that?
Yeah, no, look, I completely agree. And as I say, I love the way he went about it. I'm just thinking from Solskjaer's point of view, this is just something I think, I don't think there is an issue there. I just think it's sort of unfortunate sort of coincidence, not coincidence, but unfortunate turn of events is how he's sort of not been used. And I just think, well, if there was an actual issue between the two or Solskjaer towards Donny van Beek, I just have a feeling there is potential for this interview not to do any favors. But you do make the point, well, he's already a rock bottom. It's not going to hurt him more. What's Solskjaer going to do? Put him on the bench? That's where he has been sitting on the bench.
That's it. And you know what? Rio asked him a really good question. And Rio said, have you been given any assurances or promises? And then Donny replied with, you can never promise game time. That's just football. And then he says, you can never promise a player and tell him if he can play or not. And I agree with that. I have asked to play more. You can train hard every day, but in the end, you need game time. If you only play once a month, you cannot show your best form. Playing is really important. Factual. Nothing disrespectful toward the manager. He said he's willing to work hard. What I actually want to go into, Tom, and I'm keen to see what the comments think. Donny came out and he was asked the question by Rio, what is your best position? I can play 8, but I can play 6. He said it. He's basically said, take Fred out of the team. That's why we've got our tile up here. He's basically said, take Fred out of the team. I can do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, we'll get into that. Just a few comments before we get into sort of the positional argument, but just some of the comments here. George has said Donny's everything we want and need at United, only a matter of time before we get him on the pitch. And I completely agree, but George, we've been saying that for a year. It's only a matter of time. A year later, we're still having that debate. Jamie, morning mate, over in Northern Ireland, he's saying he can play as a deep line playmaker. He's begging for his chance to play ahead of Fred and claim his place in the team. Fair play to him. Ryan as well, I think everyone just wants him to succeed at United, even more so from this interview. Let's see how Donny fares in the 6th role, give him the chance to have a fair run of games. George as well from Sydney. G'day, lads. Start Donny and give him a go. Maybe Donny, McTominay and Fernandez might be a great midfield 3. We don't know. And just on that, I just want to get your opinion, Larry, on we always say, oh, can he find a way into the team sort of thing? So here, does Donny deserve game time? Yes, he deserves game time, of course. However, if we look at it, we always say, yeah, he should play over Fred. He should play over McTominay. He should. Well, for a year, he's not getting that chance. So we can't say, where can he play? Because Solskjaer is not going to play him. I want to throw this again. We mentioned at the start of the podcast, we wouldn't mention him, but here we are. Cristiano Ronaldo. Ronaldo is going to play. Ronaldo will change the balance of the team because he's a focal point. Okay, so that's going to change the way Man United play. Is Ronaldo's introduction into that front line maybe going to change the balance and maybe open the door for Donny van de Beek to potentially get a chance? Or is it just going to be, we're having this debate, which we've been having for a year, and Fred's going to line up?
I think the way Ronaldo plays actually is a benefit to Donny van de Beek. What Ronaldo does, and totally appreciate a lot of our listeners don't watch a lot of Italian football, and I don't watch a lot of Italian football, but I've watched enough of Juventus over the last 2.5 years to know what Ronaldo brings. Ronaldo actually likes to come deep, Tom. He doesn't sit there like Cavani tends to just stay in the box waiting for an opportunity. Ronaldo actually enjoys coming deep. He likes to look for the ball if it's not coming to him, and you can see that. Ronaldo is not the most patient bloke. I think that's fair to say. He'll go looking for the ball, and what he actually does is, because he's coming so deep, he's getting the attention of a centre-back. So the centre-back's thinking, all right, well, I can't let him wander in. I'm going to follow him in. But what Ronaldo can then do is he'll play it deep to a midfielder, and then he'll make the run. What does Donny van de Beek love? One-touch football. He mentioned in this interview that he really appreciates Juan Mata. Now, the best football we saw from Donny van de Beek has been linking up with Juan Mata in a United shirt. And that's because they're similar styles of players. They think similarly, and they're both highly intelligent footballers. They're always thinking about, how can I pass the ball and create space for others? I think what Ronaldo does is Ronaldo makes that space with his movement. Donny will be the one picking him out. Of course, Bruno does that as well. But I think Van de Beek is just a tidy footballer, and I think he'd really benefit if given an opportunity.
Well, it was a discussion between Rio Ferdinand and Donny van de Beek. It wasn't a discussion between Van de Beek and Solskjaer. But I look at it and think a lot of the theme behind the interview was Donny van de Beek alluding to the fact that he can play in a defensive midfield role or in that number 6 role. Now, for the past 6 weeks, we've been on here saying, are we going to sign a defensive midfielder? Is it Ruben Neves? What type of midfielder do we need in there? And we're always saying, well, if we don't happen to get one, Donny van de Beek maybe has the attributes to play there. Now, that's all well and good. At the end of the day, Solskjaer hasn't been playing him regardless of that position or elsewhere. So it was still an extreme long shot. But is there a potential where we're maybe alluding in that interview to him maybe getting promises? Do you think we'll never really linked with that defensive midfielder? Because while we're throwing names out there was never a credible link. Like, we're always linked with Varane. We're always linked with Sancho. The Neves and stuff was just fans really talking. There was nothing really credible. Do you think those promises maybe have been along the lines of Donny van de Beek playing a number 6 role when he does get his chance? And when he obviously does get that one chance, that number 6, it's up to him to take it.
Yeah, I think so. I know it was only a friendly, but if you saw the game against Everton, Matic and Van de Beek linked up brilliantly. And all of the best football United played that game. Matic was man of the match for me, if you can think back to that Everton game, Tom. But all the attacking prowess that United had came through the Dutchman. It was his ability to come deep, but then to move up. Give the ball to someone, but then move into a position where he's creating space for others. Look at how Everton have started in the Premier League. It's the same side. They're not an awful side. United played good football that day. And they play good football because you had an intelligent midfielder doing what an intelligent midfielder should do. Fred has his qualities. And that's not to say Fred's not United player caliber. I think there is a place for a Fred in a squad. There was a space. There was a spot for a Darren Fletcher in a squad. I think Darren Fletcher's a better footballer than Fred, but there is a space and a time for that sort of player. We've seen Fred in a midfield that's gotten results against Manchester City and Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League. Fred can play a role, but I think in United's strongest 11, and particularly 90% of the time when United are going to be playing against these low blocks, you need someone to unlock a defense. Maybe United didn't need to go to the transfer market. Maybe we've got the solution sitting on our bench. Just needs the opportunity.
Yeah, well, no, it's hard to argue. All George just says, well, I really dislike Fred as he is. What angers me even more about him is that he keeps players like Donny out of the team. Please give Donny a chance. And look, we all feel that. We're all in complete agreement. However, that doesn't fall on Fred. That unfortunately falls on Solskjaer. If we all get given the chance to play for Man United, we're going to take it. And that is what Fred is doing. Param here saying, evening lads, can't wait to hear the media overanalyze Rio's interview, which is what Ryan said there, and which is the point I come back to. I think, which I say, I do love the interview from Donny van der Beek. I just think it potentially, I'm not saying it will, but it will potentially give Solskjaer a headache he just doesn't need. Because the first thing, okay, Ronaldo will probably dominate the headlines in the press conference on Friday. Actually, now that I've mentioned that, the only questions will be about Ronaldo. But if there is a journalist with a brain, he will ask a question about Donny van der Beek. I just think well, I do love the interview. I just think it's potentially a bit of a headache for Solskjaer, which he doesn't need.
I take your point, but I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I don't think Donny's comments aggravate Solskjaer in any way, nor do they put Solskjaer in a negative light in any way. And the reason I say that is because there was nothing that he said against Ollie. And I think that was the key point here. He even praised Bruno and Pogba in that interview. And then in the midst of all of that, he's saying, I'm happy to be patient and work hard. And that's the thing. If he came out and said, if I don't get playing game time, I'm going to leave, no worries. He actually started the interview. I'll get the comments up here, actually. I like that he actually addressed the transfer speculation. There were links on the deadline date linking him to Everton. And he's got it here, actually. He mentioned that no, I spoke with the manager and the club, and they said they wanted me to stay here. And he was asked to report in a training the next day. And then he goes, Solskjaer actually said to him, from what I see from you in training every day, it's a different Donny now. He spoke well of the manager. And he said, Rio asked him, what's his man management been like? And then Donny again goes on to say, no, he's really good. His communication is very clear and concise. I have a good relationship with him. I think Donny's been really respectful here. I think what he's benefited from is the fan base now know the point of view the Dutchman was trying to put across. But most crucially, it shows the hunger in him. I like I said, I think he's done this in the most respectful and commendable way where he hasn't disrespected the club. He's only lifted his own stock. And the pressure now actually comes on a Donny. Just let me ask you, Tom. If Donny starts on the weekend now, he has to perform well, doesn't he? Yeah. Because he's come out, and if the manager now gives him an opportunity, he's like, all right, well, here's your shot, Donny. So now the pressure's like, Donny's put pressure on himself by doing this. If he doesn't perform, close the curtains.
Well, it's what we come back to at the start saying, well, what did he have to lose? He was at rock bottom. He's on the bench. Solskjaer can't punish him by putting him on the bench anymore. So, yeah, it was the last straw. And what that last straw, the risk that comes with that is now, as you're completely right, when he does get that start, which he will get a start eventually, it'll probably be within this week, whether in the Champions League or against Newcastle. The pressure is on him to succeed, to perform, and time will tell. But I mean, complete agreement. I do love the interview. I love the way he went about it. As you mentioned, he was respectful. But it, just as Pram said, which brought the comment up before, in regards to, and Ryan has made the point as well, in regards to the way the media will potentially sort of run with some and twist some stories. And I just think that is going to happen with every interview. But I just think that is where potential headaches will come. But again, it was rock bottom for Donny van der Beek, and I have no issues with him at all doing it. I think it was well done. Before we move on, hopefully, Ryan here, hopefully with Varane coming in, we don't need to play with two holding now. Should give us more flexibility in midfield rather than McFred all the time. Hopefully, Ollie has planned for this. Now, that's just my last point in regards to where can we fit Donny van der Beek in. And this is my hope. How this unfolds, I don't know. And we all sit here, when we play FIFA or Football Manager, we find ways to get Donny van der Beek into the team. In reality, Solskjaer hasn't put that into place. He hasn't been playing. However, we have good players. We have Bruno Fernandes. We have Cavani. We have Rashford. We have Greenwood. We have players who defenders worry about always. Ronaldo is different. Ronaldo will change the way teams play against us. Okay, so teams are worried about Rashford's pace in behind, they'll drop a little bit deeper. They're worried about Greenwood's ability, they'll drop a bit deeper. They're worried about Cavani's target sort of man ability, they'll get 2 men around him. They're worried about Bruno Fernandes getting on the end of crosses or putting in shots, they'll target him. It's different with Ronaldo. When Ronaldo is up there, they're not going to have 10 players around Ronaldo, of course, but it will change their focus in defending and defend, especially Newcastle. Newcastle will have 10 players behind the ball at all times against United. I just think with Ronaldo there, we always at home, we're always got 2 defensive midfielders, no matter who we play. But I just think the way Ronaldo plays and can sort of not dictate a game, but sort of influence a game in terms of the opposition, it might be the time now where Solskjaer can revert to 1 defensive midfielder, and whether that be a Fred or a McTominay in a defensive aspect, or what we want in terms of Donny van de Beek in a Michael Carrick type role. I think the introduction of Ronaldo is, as I alluded to at the start of the pod, maybe Donny van de Beek's last chance to get into that team, weirdly.
No, I agree with that, mate, and that's the thing. And the point you made, Ronaldo, we touched on it with Webby, and it's a really smart point and one that I don't think has been analysed or spoken to enough. What Ronaldo will do, and now that you look at United's 11, let's rewind to when Oli first came in. Pogba was unplayable, okay? If Pogba had a bad game, though, United did not turn up. They didn't have anything about them. Rashford had his moments of brilliance. I remember the game, I want to say it was against Bournemouth. He absolutely murdered Nathan Ake. But outside of that, if you kept Pogba quiet, you kept Rashford quiet, you kept United quiet. I think now you look at the side, Bruno changed that a little bit. I think when Bruno came in, you think back to that Burnley game before he did, Solskjaer looked dead to rights, right? Bruno improved that. The thing that you do when you bring in quality players is you give the defense something extra to think about. I think the benefit we're now going to see, and it's funny, Jadon Sancho's signing has almost been forgotten about. What Jadon Sancho is going to bring once he actually comes up to scratch is he's going to add natural width on the right-hand side. And that's been a massive problem for United. So if you can actually add that width to the right, you've got Ronaldo up front, who's still in the top 3 best players in the world. Then you've got Rashford, Martial. The defense that you cannot account for all of these players. Then you've got Bruno. You're going to worry about Bruno, then you've got to worry about Paul Pogba. You're worrying about Paul Pogba, you've got to worry about Donny van de Beek. The options are endless. And I think what you're saying spot on, mate. United now need to look at players like Donny who are going to be able to unlock a defense. That's going to be the key. There's no point having Ronaldo, Rashford, Sancho, Greenwood up front if you got Fred and McTominay in the midfield. Who's going to get them the ball?
Yeah, I think that comes down to, in terms of, and this is a stupid point, but Donny van de Beek, it'll be far better suited if we're playing well. I think, okay, we've finished second, we've finished third, we've sort of had comfortable seasons. So if you look at each individual game and each individual challenge the games have sort of given us, it's always been very tight, even when we're playing well. Every game's a 1-0, 2-1 or whatever. We're not really smashing teams. We're not sort of blowing teams off the park quite often. Obviously, it does happen on occasions. But every game, we almost go into it like a cup final thinking, this is a tough test. We're going to have to play well to win. Now, fingers crossed we go on to have a good season. Ronaldo's banging in goals and Sancho clicks and Varane and Maguire are rocks at the back. And we'll win games 3-4-0 and we're going into Newcastle. Okay, we'll win this 4-0. We're going into Burnley away. We'll win that 2-0. And if that happens, that is when Solskjaer will say, okay, we don't need those 2 defensive midfielders in front of Maguire and Varane. They're doing well. We can just sit there with the 1. So I think while things remain tight and Solskjaer, his job's not under pressure, but while it may sort of, it's the start of the season and we're looking at the table and we're technically behind teams, that type of thing, I think that still adds pressure to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And I think until we get in a bit of momentum and rhythm, Donny van de Beek might unfortunately still find himself in a similar position. But if Ronaldo does work and we are on the front foot and sort of having a good season and smashing teams, that is when I think Solskjaer will not let the reins off, but will revert to a 1 rather than a 2. But thank you, everyone. We'll just wrap up in a little bit, but I'll just go through 1 or 2 more comments. But please do leave a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe before we log off. But Larry, any other points? Just while I throw a few more points here. Up the F and Reds United. Thought on my wildcard team in Fantasy Premier League: Sanchez, Trent, Duffy, Shaw, Salah, Jota, Son, Rafinha, Antonio. Then it's Ronaldo. Well, I don't know how many people are going to have Ronaldo. I have a feeling, and we're going to do a preview, not tomorrow, but on Thursday, we'll release a preview for the Newcastle game with Adam McCullough. Larry, I don't think Ronaldo's going to be playing. Well, I think he'll be on the bench, but just my thinking is he's still in isolation. I'm thinking, well, his first day out, I'd say he has 2 days out of isolation before the game. The first day at Carrington, it's just going to be the commercial stuff. He's going to be filming his graphics for Sky Sports. He's going to do his promotional video for United, the sign-in. That's going to be a full commercial day from 9 till 5. He'll be absolutely packed. He won't train. Then the day before the game, a Friday, he'll only be trained. And just the evidence we have with new signings who have a lack of training, Solskjaer doesn't play them. And I just think we talk about Champions League Varane. It's not Champions League Varane. Ronaldo is made for the Champions League. I just think, and look, young boys isn't a priority. I just think Solskjaer in his mind will say, okay, give you half an hour, give a big substitution, that big Raw with half an hour to go, and then have the game against young boys. That's how I think it'll have. As much as I want to see him start, I just have a feeling it won't happen.
I think I agree with you, to be honest.
No, I'm right. It's going to happen. And while I'm frustrated with that, it's probably maybe the right decision. I'm thinking it and probably agree with it. At the end of the day, it's a long season. Newcastle at home isn't a cup final.
That's it. And I think Edison Cavani's been coming up to match fitness. He came off the bench against Wolves last start. And I think Cavani's probably a shoo-in to start, if I'm being honest. I could really see a front three. Obviously, we'll do our preview tomorrow. But I could easily see a front three where you see Cavani and like Mason starting up there. But it'll be interesting. I think there's a case to say Ronaldo does start. And look, Tom, by the time we're recording this tomorrow, maybe I've changed my mind. I actually changed my mind while you were speaking. I was like, oh, okay, this guy is mad. What's he talking about, Ronaldo on the bench? But you actually think about it, it makes a lot of sense. He hasn't played a lot of football. Like, yes, he played against Ireland. But I'm going to say the same thing I've been saying about Fred. With Webby, I said, Fred looks good in international football because it's a slower-paced game. The Premier League is a different beast. And Ronaldo hasn't played a lot of football as of late. He sat on the bench for Juventus. He came on, I want to say, around the 65th, 70th minute. He then didn't play the weekend before the international break, and then he's played against Ireland. So he has not really played a lot of football in the last 2 months. So you know what? Ronaldo off the bench doesn't sound too crazy.
Yeah, well, Josh has just said here, imagine if he doesn't start and the people who forked out over $2,000 for a ticket.
Yeah, imagine he doesn't play and you pay $2,000 for a ticket.
Look, he'll play. He'll be off the bench, but look, time will tell. Just last comment here before we wrap up. George saying, I hope Ollie is working on how United can play different tactics, low block, counter-attack and possession. We're known as the counter-attacking side. I think our game plan will evolve over time. And I think it naturally will evolve over, not just over time, but overnight with the introduction of Ronaldo. I just think whether it be a positive or a negative, I just think him as a focal point and his sort of influence on a dressing room and the pitch and the opposition, just everything in general, will change how we play. Whether it be better for or for worse, I'm not quite sure. Time will tell. But we're definitely going to see different styles this year. I don't think it's going to be, okay, this is the way we're playing. I think it's really going to be sort of quite flexible.
Absolutely. I think what you've even seen under Ollie, I know United haven't perfected by any stretch playing out the back. But if you think of how United played when Ollie first came in, we were very much a counter-attacking side. Whereas now that we're starting to play more on the front foot. So I think you are seeing that evolution, but naturally, George, as you bring in better players, your evolution of everything you do improves. We've seen it already, actually. Fred, the reason we're all up Fred's ass at the moment is because the quality of the players around Fred has gone up a level in the last 2 seasons. Fred's sticking out like a sore thumb. That's what's happening. So the football will evolve. I definitely, telling you, Tom, I could see United playing a 3-man at the back. It won't be our regular formation, but I think it's something you'll see more regularly than not.
Yeah, no, look, I can see some of not our best performances, but Solskjaer's best performances, Solskjaer's best jobs have been with 3 at the back sometimes at Chelsea or away at City, etc. So I think it's something Solskjaer will definitely have up his sleeve. But as I said, we will do a preview, not tomorrow, but the next day with Adam McCullough. So that'll be really good to get him back on the podcast. I'm sure a lot of people will be interested to get his thoughts. It's obviously especially a couple of days ahead of Ronaldo's return or potential return, as we've just mentioned. But hopefully everyone did enjoy a little bit of a chat on Donny van der Beek. Look, fingers crossed he's back, or I would say back in the team. Eventually finds his way into the team at last. But unfortunately, I think it might be Fred on the weekend. But that will be a discussion for the preview on Thursday. So make sure you do join us for that. Larry, good to have a chat with you. Some
Yeah,
pro
mate,
clubs
pleasure.
later tonight.
Oh yeah, we'll be on pro clubs. I just need to work out what pro I'll be creating for this session, but I'll figure it out.
As I said, hopefully everyone did enjoy the video. Make sure you leave a like, and we will chat to you on Thursday. Have a good one, guys.